By way of introduction, most of you by now have some sense of who I am. In my first life, I was a poet. In my second life, I was a human internist. In my third life, I was a biomedical researcher. And I'm currently a beef veterinarian, raise registered beef cattle south of town.
And most of you know who I am. I'm Cathy Anderson, and like Lana, I have transformed myself many, many times over the course of my career. I have been a general practitioner. I've worked as a specialist doing radiation oncology. I have been a postdoctoral fellow and done research. And currently I'm doing my passion, which is shelter medicine.
What we're going to do today, for those of you who are involved in the welfare judging contest, how many of there are you out there? Okay, this might be a little bit repetitious for you, but for the other people in the audience, we're going to present you with a retired rehome horse scenario. And before we get there, we need to talk about livestock judging. Anybody in here ever do livestock judging? Okay, so you're familiar with that. What happened about 2001 or so, Cammie Halusky took the idea of livestock judging and thought that it could be used to teach undergraduates about animal welfare. And what she did, not entirely single-handedly, but pretty close to single-handedly, was create the welfare judging contest, which started out with just a couple people and now is international. And what, you guys had 120? So kudos to Cammie for starting this. And there she is back there. Okay, for those of you who have done livestock judging, you know that what happens is there are generally 4 animals of the same type. So you wouldn't compare pigs to cattle. You would look at, in this example, these are breeding heifers. And what you do is based on qualities that you want in breeding heifers, you would rank them. Anybody here think heifer number 1 is the highest ranking heifer? You in the cowboy hat. Did you do livestock judging? No, okay, so you're off the hook. Anybody think heifer number 1 is the highest ranking heifer here? Anybody think heifer number 2 is? 3? Okay, 4? Okay. This is for me, is a really easy class to judge. I would place them 1, 3, 2, and 4. This came from the University of Kentucky, and that's the way they place them. And so what I have done is taken what I know about what a breeding heifer should have in terms of femininity, capacity, muscling, style, substance, and rank them in that order. Number 4 is clearly the lowest placing heifer in this group. And so if you've done any livestock judging, this is a pretty easy class to judge. However, here we have 2 really fine red Angus females. I showed these females to several cattle judges and said to them, on any given day, which cow would you place over the other? And they both said, on any given day, I could place 1 over 2, or I could place 2 over 1. What we have here is 2 really excellent red Angus females. And if we assume that they are of the same age and the same gestation and the same number of calvings, it's very difficult to pick one over the other. And what it comes down to is what you prefer. So for example, all of the judges looked at me and said, you prefer number 1. And I said, well, how'd you know that? Because I do. Because that's the kind of cattle I have. Number 2, on the other hand, has more condition and has been clipped and is likely being sold. So on any given day, somebody could pick 2 over 1. I would always pick 1 because that's my preference. So with that, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the retired rehomed horse scenario. And we have 2 horses. We have Fred, the retired rehomed cutting horse, and
we have Jack, the retired rehomed racing horse.
And since we only have 1 microphone, we have to pass it back and forth. Okay, so what you need to know from the beginning, if you've not been involved in these contests, is that these are virtual horses. You can't go out and find Fred or Jack. They're basically composite collage horses based on what we know about horses and the industry. and their experiences. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to introduce the horses, we're going to describe their situations, we're going to pass the microphone back and forth, and then we're going to give you guys about 5 minutes to decide who has the better welfare. And you should have a handout that sort of goes through the various characteristics and situations of these horses. Then we're going to poll the crowd, and even though you've never judged you in the cowboy hat, be prepared. And then we're going to give you the reasons that we placed 1/2 or 2/1. So here's Fred, the retired rehomed cutting horse.
And here's Jack, the retired rehomed racing horse.
And before we get there, I just wanted to point out that both of these horses were involved in extremely athletic competitions. And if you just take a minute to look at this cutting horse, you can see how down he is in the back and how much his joints are stressed. And if you've ever seen a border collie work sheep, that's what these horses do when they're working cattle. They bounce back and forth. Football players do it too, I guess. And you can also, most people are more familiar with racing, you can see the stress that these racing horses undergo, so they both need to be exceedingly fit in order to compete. Okay, so Fred, the retired rehomed cutting horse. He's a 12-year-old registered quarter horse. He has a Freeze brand on his left hip. He started training at age 2, and he trained 5 to 6 times per week. He was born and trained in Texas and competed across the U.S. He had 3 owners, 1 trainer, and he lived on 600 acres with 300 cows.
Jack, the retired rehomed racing horse, is a 9-year-old Jockey Club papered thoroughbred. He has a lip tattoo. He has had race training starting at age 2. He was race trained 1 hour per day for 5 days a week. He was born and trained in Kentucky, raced on the East Coast. He's had 1 owner and 1 trainer, and he has been stalled in a racing stable 23 hours per day.
Okay, Fred started competing at age 4. He competed 2 to 3 times a month across the country. He had a successful career. He won money, he won saddles and other such stuff. He retired after 8 years of competition due to an injury.
Jack started racing at age 3. He raced about 87 times. He too had a successful career. He was a money winner. He was retired after 6 years of racing due to an injury.
Okay, Fred slipped on the ice and incurred an injury when he was on winter pasture. He was immediately stalled and his veterinarian was called. Physical exam by the veterinarian at the time and ultrasound revealed a sacroiliac injury, damage to the dorsal sacroiliac ligament. He was retired from cutting and he remained with his owner.
Jack pulled up lame after the 87th race. He was seen immediately by a veterinarian. A physical exam and x-rays were performed, and the x-rays revealed a chip fracture of the front knee. He was retired from racing, and the owner contacted the OTTB for surgical rehabilitation facility.
Okay. In terms of rehab and results, Fred was stall rested with gradual increase in activity. His veterinarian assessed him as having chronic SI injury and damage and felt that he would be sound for pasture work and trail work and pleasure work, but not sound for competitive cow work. He was given by his owner to a client with a herd of registered cattle. The owner wanted the horse back if it didn't work out.
Jack had successful surgery to remove the bone chip. He was integrated to pasture and activity with other horses. His veterinary assessment was that he was sound for all activities. He was sold for $5,000 to a family with a child involved in Pony Club. The OTTB rescue wants the horse back if it didn't work out.
Okay, in terms of nutrition and husbandry, Fred is 15-2 hand, body condition score 6, quarter horse. He's fed ad lib grass, hay, or pasture. Pelleted vitamin, mineral, and joint supplements. He has routine veterinary, dental, and farrier care. He has no routine medications, and he has no stereotypic behaviors.
Jack is 16.3 hands. He has a body condition score of 5. Remember, he's a thoroughbred. Fed 3 pounds of sweet feed and 12 pounds of alfalfa hay twice daily. He receives pelleted mineral joint coat and hoof supplement. He does receive routine veterinary, dental, and farrier care. He too receives no routine medications and exhibits no stereotypic behaviors.
Okay, currently, Fred lives with his owner, who's an adult woman who raises cattle on 120 acres. He lives with yearling heifers and no other horses on a 10-acre pasture. He has pasture access 24/7, 365. If he so desires, he can walk into a 12-by-12 run-in, and he is never blanketed.
Jack's current owner is a 10-year-old boy who competes in Pony Club 3-day events. The horse lives in a show barn with 12 other horses. He's stalled and turned out 4 hours daily, weather and show schedule dependent. And he goes out with 2 other horses. He's clipped and blanketed in the winter.
Okay, in terms of physical and social activity, I don't know what that is. Fred has unlimited access to pasture, daily interaction with cattle and people, but rare interaction with other horses. He's groomed daily, bathed infrequently, and never clipped. He's ridden 4 to 5 times per week, checking fence, trails, low-impact flat work, and he's trailered loose in a 20-foot stock trailer.
Jack has limited pasture access. He has interaction with 2 other horses when in the pasture, which is about 4 hours per day. He's groomed daily, bathed and clipped before shows. He is ridden 4 to 5 times per week. He does ring, trail, dressage, and road work. He is also jumped 1 time per week. He's shown at least 1 weekend per month, and he's trailered to shows with other horses in a 4-horse slant load trailer.
So, the question that we are asking you to cogitate and ponder over the next several minutes is which horse, in your opinion, has the better welfare and why? So, Sam, give us a 4-minute time. Cogitate, talk to your friends, write something down. You may be called upon. You've got 1 more minute. Okay, are we ready? Okay, everybody. Let's start with, how many people thought that the one horse, Fred, had the better welfare? How many people thought that the two horse, Jack, had the better welfare? Okay, Sarah. Do you want to come up and give us a couple reasons why you picked 2 over 1?
I will give you one reason, and one reason only. Jack has more contact with other horses, and that seemed to me to be weighing out most important because lots of other aspects of their care and their husbandry were more similar than different to me.
Okay, cool. Sherry, you got something to say?
Hi, I'm Dr. Sherry Collins, and I want to preclude this by saying that I was an equine practitioner for 17 years prior to today. We were talking about previous lives. And I think both of these horses have good welfare, and I always want to make a point of remembering what their options were if they hadn't been adopted by either one of these owners. And so I couldn't place one over another without incorporating just my personal beliefs on how I keep a horse. And I wouldn't want to say that the one that would do it differently than me is necessarily having poorer welfare for that animal.
Excellent, thanks. Anybody else? I'm sure somebody's got something else to say. Except for the goats. Okay, do we need to pick on people? Okay, you can pick somebody now.
Dr. Cece.
Yeah. Do we have a volunteer behind Dr. Cece? Oh, cool.
Okay, I picked the retired cutting horse, and I did say to the person sitting next to me that the only thing that could make his life perfect or closer to perfect would be a horsey friend. Okay, so, but everything else, I've been, I was an equine practitioner for 3 years. I made it through 3 years without getting killed. And I did work at a stable that did hunter-jumper racing and box hunting, and we clipped our horses every winter. And I just didn't think the horses appreciated that, and so if I were a horse, I wouldn't want to be clipped during the winter and blanketed.
Thanks, Shereen.
My name is Marianne Ostertag, and I'm an undergrad equine and animal dual major at Colorado State University, and I just competed in the welfare competition here. I also own an ex-racehorse, so of course I'm biased towards them. But I think it's really important to consider the chronic stressors that both of these horses face. Like Fred doesn't have any pasture mates, and that's a huge part of horses feeling comfortable in their environment. And Fred also has a chronic injury and is overweight. And so it's important to consider that he might be constantly a little uncomfortable because he's too heavy. But like the thoroughbred, Jack is fed sweet feed and hay twice a day, so he's predisposed to ulcers, and thoroughbreds are already stressors, and he's a show horse. So, you know, they're both kind of predisposed to different stressors. And also Fred was a cutting horse who lives with cows and can't cut. And I think that could also be a stressor to him because a lot of cutting horses really enjoy it. So I don't know if I can really pick one over the other, and we were all discussing it over there in our welfare groups, but it's just really important to look at what both of these horses are facing because it is pretty different, even though they're very similar.
Thank you. That was very good.
Hi, I'm Dr. Judy Burrell, and I'm a mixed animal practitioner and also have 7 horses of my own. Even though it says no stereotypical behaviors, I was wanting to incorporate if there are signs of pleasure or suffering. So usually the stereotypical behaviors imply the suffering, but are there signs of pleasure on the signs of Jack? Is he reveling in showing? Because some horses really do. They have a work ethic and they are not happy if they're not doing that. And so is he prancing? Is he happy? Is he showing preferences for the show ring, or is he doing show ring avoidance, which we've all seen? And then Fred could be perfectly happy without an equine companion because he has other companions. Or is he standing kind of at the gate or showing signs of depression that might not be as obvious as some of those things? And then you got to take into account, which I'm sure others have already, the breed. Quarter horses, I'm thinking a little bit lazier animal, that even though he has 24-hour access to pasture, he's probably standing in that 12 by 12 running. and again, the thoroughbred, he's gonna have more of like, kind of border collie-ish. I want to be out there doing something, and so anyway, those were some of my thoughts. But it was very difficult to choose.
Good thoughts. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Eileen Stefanski, a first-year vet student, and also taking Dr. Sigford's welfare class right now, so I kind of feel obligated to come up and do this because I have to do this every week.
I'll tell Janice you were here.
Thank you. I guess after having looked at all the slides and do the pros and cons of it, the one thing that concerns me about Jack is he's doing the jumping, which could be high impact. So even though he's 100% successful right now, maybe in later years that'll quicken the pace at which he might become arthritic in that leg. And then also, I do like the fact that Fred is out 24 hours in pasture, which gives him more opportunities to express more natural behaviors. So that's why I would place Fred over Jack.
Thanks. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Paige. I'm also a first-year veterinary student. I guess my beliefs, I lie heavily with keeping an animal in a natural state, in a natural environment. I have a horse that's really never worn a blanket unless trailering in cold weather, doesn't wear shoes, but he maintains that way and he does really well. I guess the way I saw this was Fred wasn't kept in a stall his whole life, and I feel like that doesn't let them be in their natural state. I don't feel like Jack can really go out and run and just be crazy and be a horse. And so for me, it's kind of the same thing with sows and gestation crates, and I understand it keeps them cleaner. But if you just let a pig run in an area with other pigs, you can clearly see they're having fun and they're being pigs. So it's kind of let a horse be a horse. Yeah. And also the thing with companion horses to me, horses having companion horses, I have a horse that he almost is more stressed out with another horse because he gets so herd bound that and the separation anxiety that he does way better by himself instead of getting in that high upset state. So, it's all a matter of perspective, I guess, and the individual.
Excellent. Yes. Anybody else want to comment? I must say, the first-year veterinary students, I'm impressed with you guys.
Hi, I'm from the University of Guelph, and I just wanted to point out that typically horses don't really love transportation, and it seems like that Jack would probably be transported frequently to shows. That's happening once a month, and they probably aren't super interested in doing that, whereas Fred, although he's trailered in probably a subpar trailer, it doesn't say that he actually goes in the trailer or has to go anywhere. So while it's only a short fraction of time, it's still a adversive experience, probably.
Can be an adversive experience, certainly.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Bigney. I'm a veterinary assistant. I chose Fred over Jack from the simple fact that Fred is allowed to continue on with the lifestyle that he had prior to his retirement as a cow horse, and that if And as far as a companion animal goes, if he was never housed or felt, or his owners didn't feel the need for him to be with another horse, then it would make no difference in his retirement versus when he was competing.
Good point, good point. Anybody else? Okay, so I guess what we're going to do is we've created reasons, and we're going to read them. And then we'll have lunch. Okay. I place the welfare of 1, Fred, the retired cutting horse, above that of 2, the retired racehorse, for reasons of natural behavior, nutrition, and husbandry. I recognize that both horses have good welfare, and I grant that 2's social environment is enhanced when compared to 1. The retired cutting horse has 24/7 access to pasture, allowing him to graze at will, which combines feeding with exercise. I place a high value on his ability to choose his own environment and to move or exercise as he desires. The ability to freely move about is also important for the well-being of a horse with an old musculoskeletal injury. When provided the opportunity, horses will choose to be outside rather than in a stall. While the retired racehorse has limited pasture exposure, he is able to interact with other horses when in pasture and is stalled in a barn with other horses. I grant that the lack of conspecific interaction could be detrimental to the welfare of the cutting horse, the retired cutting horse. However, I believe, as described by the UK Code of Practice, that frequent positive human interaction and daily interaction with heifers mitigates this issue. While both horses have acceptable body condition scores, horses as grazing animals are designed to eat small amounts many times throughout the day. In regards to nutrition, I place 1 over 2 because of 1's ability to eat ad lib, which is important for gastrointestinal health. I grant that 2's twice daily feeding is acceptable and is common in a show barn environment. Neither horse shows evidence of stereotypic behaviors. Both horses have appropriate and equal veterinary, farrier, and dental care. Both horses have daily grooming and adequate, albeit different lifestyles, exercise programs, and trailering. Both horses have good welfare. In summary, I value the retired cutting horse's ability to graze, exercise, and choose his environment over horse 2's limited but regular interaction with other horses. For these reasons, I place 1 above 2 in terms of welfare.
I place the welfare of 2, the retired racehorse, above the welfare of 1, the retired cutting horse. I grant that both horses have appropriate or better than appropriate welfare. I place 2 above 1 because I value 2's social interaction opportunities more highly than the fact that horse 1 has nearly constant at-liberty turnout. Horse 2 is turned out with other horses and stalled in a barn with other horses, resulting in an improved social environment. Conspecific social interactions are important to all herd animals, including horses. I grant that the social needs of 1 may be met with human and cattle interaction, but I place a higher value on conspecific interaction. I grant that horse 1 lives in a much more natural environment than horse 2, who is stalled the majority of the day. Horse 1 has an ad lib access to feed and the ability to exercise at will, which benefits both digestion and the musculoskeletal system. Neither horse shows evidence of stereotypies or behavioral problems, again suggesting both horses have appropriate welfare. The body condition of 2, although acceptable, is 1 score less than that of 1. This is most likely due to differences in breed and exercise level and is not a welfare concern. While the diet of 1 is 100% forage available 24/7, 2 has forage and concentrate twice daily. I grant 2's welfare could be improved by increasing the number of feedings, although this may be difficult in a show barn environment. Both horses have clean, shiny coats and similar veterinary, farrier, dental, and supplemental routines. Both horses are exercised and groomed routinely. Daily grooming is particularly important for 1 as he is unable to participate in mutual grooming. However, he is able to roll at will. In summary, I place 2, the retired racing horse, above 1 for his ability to interact with other horses. I temper this placing, noting that both horses have more than adequate welfare.
So I see this a lot like the Red Angus females, and I hope that you can recognize that very often our perceptions of what's important plays a role when welfare is good and makes our decisions about what we think is better welfare. I didn't say that well at all. Okay. In terms of the goat and sheep thing that we're going to have later on this afternoon, we have a handout that we'll put out in front, so you can pick that up. There are box lunches, but there are no boxes, so I guess you just have to go through the line and grab your food as opposed to being handed a box. And we will meet back here at what time, Sam? 1:45. You guys were an excellent audience. Thanks for all the comments.